Very professional here, Mitchell. All right. All right, listen, rummies. It's time to dust off your starter jackets, rip off those tearaways, and blow into your game cartridges. I'm Sam Blanford.
I'm Marty T.
I'm Mitch Bradley.
And I'm Simon Blanford.
And we wish it was the 90s. Well, welcome back, dear listeners. And welcome in. We have a new special guest on today. We'll introduce him soon. But straight into the episode. This week on The Simpsons. March 16th, 1997. The 18th episode of the 8th season. Homer versus the 18th Amendment aired. To talk through it with us today is the regulars, Simon Blanford and Marty T. Welcome, gents.
Cheers, Sam.
And special guest, Simpsons connoisseur, big fan of the podcast, Mitchell Bradley. Great to have you, mate.
Thank you very much. Very good to be with you. Delighted to be joining some of my personal podcasting heroes. Long-time listener. Have very much enjoyed the back catalogue and looking forward to being part of the project.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, I just realised that the 18th episode, and it's got 18th in the title. Outrageous. So we will jump into the episode shortly, but before we do, I thought we'd throw it over to Mitchell. Normally we get our new podcasters to share a little bit about their memories, and specifically about The Simpsons, obviously. I know we bonded over The Simpsons as barmen at Spates Ale House in Batoni. And, there were a few of us there, actually, who did. But I'd just like to hear your sort of memories of The Simpsons growing up and what you really liked about it.
I've been a fan as long as I can really remember, eh? I mean, I think one of the earliest memories I do have that I can distinctly recall is the advertisements coming out for the episodes, like episodes that are now part of the classic era in the mid to late 90s. I can remember them being advertised on TV, specifically for some reason. One episode, the one where the X-Files crew made an appearance, and Mr. Burns was the alien. Spoiler alert, sorry about that. But for some reason, that distinctly stands out, like it was this big mystery. And actually, I looked it up, and I think the episode we're about to cover is from the exact same season. And so that shows you how old I am, that I can remember as a kid, the ads for this particular season. I mean, the other key memory for The Simpsons is really the traditional Sky One Saturday afternoon slot, which I think has been mentioned on this podcast before, but that was a real winner particularly after footy. Well, not so much footy as a small kid, but as an adult even. And then if you missed any episodes, the Sunday morning catch up for the omnibus. So those are the kind of key memories. Some of us were watching Sky One for other reasons, but I have fond memories of the classic era of The Simpsons just being replayed constantly, basically, on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, nice. I don't really recall. Like, was there something about the ads?
No, I just remember it was Channel 3 or Channel 2, and I just, for some reason, this particular episode just really sticks in. Whenever I see it, when it comes up, I'm just like, I remember that being advertised, and it being like, ooh, like there's an alien on The Simpsons kind of thing. That was how they were spinning it. Great guest appearances.
So, episode. Simon, can you give us a little synopsis, little rundown, little plot summary of Homer versus the 18th Amendment? Not commandment, the amendment. There is one that is something to do with a commandment, isn't there?
Adultery one with Mindy Simmons, I think.
Oh, Homer versus is it 8th commandment, maybe?
Sure what number the adultery commandment is, but that's the Mindy Simmons, I believe. But no, so I got distracted there. I was watching the skies. I'll read the episode description now for you all. So in the episode, Springfield enacts prohibition, which obviously means that drinking alcohol is illegal. after a raucous St. Patrick's Day celebration where Bart gets drunk by mistake. To supply Moe's speakeasy, which is like a hidden bar, Homer becomes a bootlegger, so he makes his own alcohol. After a group of staunch prohibitionists led by the usual suspects, Agnes Skinner, Helen Lovejoy, etc. Great little crew, by the way. Discover an intoxicated Chief Wiggum at Moe's speakeasy. He is replaced by Rex Banner, an officer of the U.S. Treasury Department. Banner blockades the city entrance and buries all of the alcohol in a mass grave at the city dump. And that's the synopsis there. I just a little personal note on the episode. I used to teach The Great Gatsby at Year 13 or 7th form to some of our older listeners, and I always showed them the kids this episode before we started reading The Great Gatsby. Just as an introduction to prohibition, which obviously Gatsby gets his money from being a bootlegger. And it's the most tenuous of links, but any excuse to get a Simpsons episode in the classroom.
Yeah, it's nice, Si. We'll just go quickly with our thoughts on the episode. Don't need a rating or anything like that, but we might start with you, Marty, without revealing too many of the your favourite bits. What do you think of the episode in general?
When I watched it back, I was thinking sort of beforehand how much of this episode would I actually remember from memory, because I actually hadn't seen this one specifically in quite a few years, and I actually remembered pretty much all of it. Yeah, so I guess it's sort of speaks to its like the quality of the episode as such. But yeah, it was a real good, I guess, classic Simpsons way of depicting their version of not only historical events but like various different cultures around the world, etc. But yeah, really good episode, and again, a good leading guest character brought in. I don't know where Rex Banner would rank among the likes of Hank Scorpio, etc. Lyle Lanley might be an interesting sort of angle for perhaps another episode later on down the line. But yeah, good episode. Really liked it.
Nice. Mitch, what about yourself?
Yeah, interestingly, I actually didn't enjoy it as much as I thought that I would when I was, casting a scrutinized sort of analytical eye over it, obviously in advance of, appearing with you guys. There were a few things that really helped save it, if you like, which we'll come to, I think, shortly. Some of them have already been touched on. One comment I did want to make is that in doing, obviously, the extensive research that I have done in preparing for this podcast, I saw something online where some commentator was sort of suggesting that this was one of the presaging episodes where The Simpsons started to veer into like kind of zany, sort of outlandish plot lines where Homer was getting up to quite wild things, moving away from the kind of character-driven plots that it used to sort of focus on in the first 5 or 6, 7 seasons. And you can sort of see some of that coming through, but I think it's not completely zany like some later episodes would be, because I think a few key factors help pull it back, and we can come to those in my favorite parts.
What about yourself, Si?
As interestingly enough, I just quickly jotted down that this is definitely the era, and I don't hold this against The Simpsons. To me, this doesn't knock it down at all, but I just wrote it does start to veer away from reality insofar as that. For a cartoon, The Simpsons was as closely based in reality as it could be for quite some time, and this is definitely the era where it starts to do that, as you say, more zany. So but really love the episode, but I will agree with Mitch on that point for sure.
Yeah, I didn't like it very much. I thought I'd really like it, and I actually didn't really like the episode. I don't think Rex Banner was very good. And I remember really loving this episode, and I think it's of a specific quote in the episode or a bit in the episode that really stands out. and I loved as a child, which probably gave me fond memories of it. And there's like high ratings of it, and like it's got an 8.8 out of 10 or whatever it is on IMDb. But yeah, I thought there was some funny bits and some bits that saved it. But yeah, I didn't really like it that much.
I definitely liked it a lot. Just want to clarify that. Just because it veers away from reality, that doesn't stop me from liking it at all. And neither does it in your guys' cases. Obviously, I just regardless of that, I did enjoy the episode.
In the context of like of how much I like a Simpsons episode, I just feel like there are lots that I like a lot better. Awesome.
It's better than like a 2.5 Men episode, though. Probably just sneaks ahead of that.
Just a little bit. So we'll go into our best bits, and it will be interesting to hear. We obviously might come from different angles listening to our thoughts. And we might start with you, Marty. Some of your favourite bits or quotes or things that you noticed in the episode.
I sort of referenced a little bit earlier. It's interesting to see how The Simpsons portrays cultures from different countries. Obviously, this being a St. Paddy's Day premise, and I didn't actually know that the release date was the 16th of March, so pretty clever from them.
Neither.
But then they did sneak in a few little subtle jabs as to, I guess, how Americans perceive Irish people to be. Like there was when Kent Brockman was in the news, what would you call it, tower on the street, and all of the people who were climbing up once they were drunk all had Boston accents. For one, which I thought was actually quite clever from them. And then there was the explosion in John Bull's fish and chip shop with the Union Jack on the awning out the front, which is like a little bit of a. I wouldn't know how much Americans would know about the troubles in that. But yeah, so just their, I guess, depiction of Irish culture, and obviously the Irish cops that were wandering on the street were all red-headed and with really, really bad Irish accents. Was an interesting touch from them. And then, to be fair, my sort of favourite bit centred around I guess some of the more memorable quotes that stuck with me, that I felt myself sort of saying along with the show, like when Rex Banner's at the top of, is it called Mount Springfield, looking out over the town, and I'll find you, Bear Baron, and then there's Homer somehow the only person who he can hear yelling at, "No, you won't."
That's the quote that I referred to earlier as the one that really stuck out to me. Why I love this. Why I thought I would really like this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And there were a few others that I kind of that I hadn't sort of remembered. But then there was the relationship between obviously Fat Tony and like what he was doing as far as bootlegging was concerned, which made me remember back to one of the quotes at the start when Kent Brockman says something about St. Patrick's Day. Everybody's a little bit Irish, except for the gays and Italians.
So what's the historical part of that? It's just that something about obviously maybe American Italians and American Irish don't get on, or is it just Italians and Irish, or?
I'm not too sure. Obviously, they're both big immigrant groups in the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Or early 20th century.
I read something that homosexuals are not allowed to march in, or weren't allowed to march in St. Patrick's Day celebrations.
Be a Catholic thing, I'm presuming. Yeah. As far as like other best bits that I remember, obviously when Rex Banner goes to Moe's pet shop and has the little like eye slot that Moe opens up, and Moe's reaching for the lever to pull for all the pet shop stuff to come out of the ground, and Banner comes in and says his piece and then takes off again and then pulls the stick back, and poor old Barney's come back out from underneath the basement, and what does he say? Something like, "Oh, those gears down there really hurt." Just takes another sip of his beer. There were a few other bits that I like, but I'll throw it back to you guys to just share some of yours and see what else comes back out in the wash.
Yeah, Si?
Mitch, I'll let Mitch go as our guest. I don't want to take all the good lines, which I will.
Thank you for allowing me that space. Yeah, look, I won't pretend that I understood the sort of ethnic or Italian or Irish jokes when I was a kid. I think I'm much like you guys, but I think that's the brilliance of The Simpsons, is that there's these, there's slapstick comedy, which I definitely remember liking as a kid, just the real dumb stuff of Homer falling off a cliff. But then there's as you get older, there's other things you start to pick up and appreciate. I mean, the political stuff, like a English fish and chip shop blowing up, day parade and everyone cheering, that sort of thing. You can appreciate as you get a bit older. But I was saying earlier that I found the episode fairly middling. I mean, the concept of a prohibition episode and examining how that would work in Springfield is quite a good gag. But I think what sort of really elevates it to be quite enjoyable for me was sort of the narration, the way in which they kind of put in this old-timey nature to it. So the narration, having like this old-timey detective turn up, some of the characters, the way they're talking, I think there's like a recurring gag where like basically no one can understand what Rex Banner's saying. He's using all these like old school terminology and stuff. I think it's very funny, probably the best gag of the whole episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of when he turns up to Moe's and he's sort of like Curly, he just like doesn't even understand even just words that Rex Banner's using. So for me, it's probably the single funniest part of the whole episode. But we'll come to the characters later on. But I mean, Rex Banner, I couldn't disagree with you more, Sam Blanford. I think he is in the top echelon of one-off Simpsons characters. One appearance characters, and we can go through a couple of others, which I had noted down actually, Marty, much like you. I had a couple of extra ideas, but yeah. So for me, those were the things I enjoyed the most. The sort of like the sort of old-timey stuff. And I just think it's really clever, the whole idea of, literally they talk about how are we so bereft of ideas that we must revive prohibition, and then, obviously just poking fun at the lack of like political imagination to sort of come up with solutions to like complex problems. Let's just ban alcohol. I'll leave it there.
You didn't mention the old time guy who reads the script, the little whatever his name is.
I'm coming to him.
What about yourself, Si?
Yeah, I definitely love that old-timey thing and agree about how much I love Rex Banner. And just to go back to that Gatsby thing, I think that's the point. It's trying to echo that 1920s era, and how ridiculous, as you've pointed out, Mitch, how ridiculous it was. So they make Rex Banner ridiculous. That line about "there's a raid, Curly." Raid, Curly. Just such a great line. It's already funny. And then Mo saying it twice makes it funnier. But for my bits, I just want to focus on the absurdity of The Simpsons. That as a nerdy kid, it just drew me in. I won't steal the random character one, but after the clerk reads out some rules or ordinance or something, I think Helen Lovejoy says, "Read the other one, the non-duck one." Which I found really funny. And the other absurd one was when Rex Banner, spoiler alert, does quote unquote capture Homer. Everyone starts whispering, and then "I've captured the beer baron," and then he said, "He's captured Homer." Like everyone knows it's Homer, and it's this massive mystery. And I think Lenny, again, they love to poke fun at themselves at how they realise it's a ridiculous plot line. Like every single person in Springfield knows it's Homer, and for Lenny just say that out in the open, I thought was just fantastic.
One bit I like laughed out loud at, and it made me think of a question to ask you guys was when it cuts to Marge at the St. Patrick's Day parade. Like, I love this. Brings out the best emotions in people: joy, excitement, looking. And it made me think, like, I find Marge really, really funny in some moments, but I can't quite put my finger on what the writers or what they do to make her that funny. Like, I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know if any of you can. I don't know if I can't even think of other times when I've found her funny, but that kind of thing is perfect for her, I reckon.
Yeah, she's an interesting character, in the way that they use her. Like, they really try to overtly show how mundane her life is, and how simple and, I guess, cliche the whole American housewife kind of thing is, as well as her enabling behavior towards Homer's stupidity. Yes, they do her pretty well. It's in some stages.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's exactly how I would have thought. It's a nod to the boringness of the kind of stay-at-home mum. And I mean, she thinks potatoes are neat. And in fact, this is one of the few episodes, I think, where Marge actually approves of Homer's kind of schemes. And I picked that up as I rewatched it, because obviously the trope is that, she's the boring kind of, handbrake on Homer and Bart to a lesser extent, or maybe to a greater extent. But in this episode, she's a big fan of the Bear Baron's schemes.
Much to Lisa's chagrin, yeah, that's a great little part. Yeah, just I really agree with both of you guys on Marty's points about that. How mundane her life is. I think I would guess, and not that I've looked it up, there'll be some people quite critical of Marge's character in feminist circles, but to me, I think it's quite a powerful. She's quite a powerful statement on how restricting it can be to be just a housewife, right? Like, for her, it's so mundane, it's impossible for her to be creative. And this is someone who is like an accomplished artist, and when she was younger. And I think there's some really interesting storylines on Marge throughout the series. Like, and one line I think about when she's so locked into this life that she can't be creative at all is the Itchy and Scratchy episode, where who's the head of the company? The Chester Lampwick one.
Roger Myers.
Roger
Yeah.
Myers. And they're in the courtroom, and he says, "If we can't steal ideas, who's going to think of them, huh?" And she's like, "How about Ghost Mutt?" She's just
Another great line.
The best Marge line of all time. But it's funny because of how pathetic the idea is, because her creativity has been stifled for so long that because of this life, that she can only come up with Ghost Mutt. So it's a really good question, Sam. Really good question.
I think some of the times when they've sort of had Marge-centric episodes, it seems as though her sense of being trapped as sort of a feeling that's been bottled up for ages, and then she just goes absolutely like off her rocker. I can think of when she had the gambling problem. She became a cop, which is so far outside of what you would think her character to be. And then there was was it the road rage with the Canyonero? Yep. Just to name a few, it's when they centered around her, she just goes way to the extreme, and maybe that sort of again highlights the actual life of her being so boring and stale.
I think Ruth Powers started her on that path.
Yep.
In the Thelma and Louise homage episode.
It's quite early on, eh? Any other bits you want to highlight, Marty?
I thought they had a pretty good use of like classic Simpsons gags. I think someone mentioned it earlier around the disgruntled ladies. Like, it's that classic crew: Helen Lovejoy, Maud Flanders. Is it Mrs. Gluckman? I think her name might be the one who
Mrs. Gluck.
said, "No, Ned." It's when he was trying to buy was it the phone?
No, Ned, just candy, $90.
That's it. And so it was good to see them back again. Good use again of the spinning newspapers to sort of illustrate that old-timey kind of way of, presenting headlines throughout a story. There was one other which I won't touch on just yet because it centers around my MVP for the episode. But those are a few of them.
I think my favorite spinning newspaper headline was "Spinning newspaper injures reader."
Speaking of which, what did Hibbert call his wife? I swear she's got multiple names.
It's Bernice is her name.
I'm sure I've heard her be called not Bernice in another episode.
Do you have any best? Do you have any best bits, Sam? Because I've got a few, but you haven't really said much.
Oh, nah, it's not a best bit, but Marty mentioned it before. I fucking hate Lovejoy. I hate Helen Lovejoy, and that ongoing. Won't somebody please think of the children? And when she walks, the bit that she's actually part of a really good bit where she goes in and Wiggum's dancing with like that princess. He's like, oh, geez, this looks bad. Better turn on the old Wiggum charm. She's just like, pervert. Oh, this looks bad.
I like Helen Lovejoy. She got that horrible place, Sex Cauldron, closed down at least.
Who gets called a bunch of low-income nobodies? Or you're just a low-income nobody?
Mayor Quimby, when he's presented with what seems to be a petition or some sort of protest.
Yeah,
about
that's right.
Clancy.
Sorry, Si, carry on.
Yeah, got a few good ones here. Just Kent Brockman calling himself Kent O. Brockman was good. Bart, after he scolded, like someone says Bart's drunk, or so, I can't remember the exact order, but immediately his three friends, including Millhouse, yay, Bart! And they just completely stupid. And also when Homer like turns himself in and Wiggum's explaining his plot, Homer's just got the most smug look on his face, like as he's turned himself in. You forgot one thing. I filled the balls with a funnel. I just loved how smug Homer was that whole time.
Any other bits we think need to be covered before we can go into our MVP of the episode and best supporting actor?
I just noticed as I rewatched it an instance of Millhouse bullying Bart, which was a real turn of the tables there. I know Millhouse is a personal favourite of Sam's, the dad, as it were. So to see Millhouse, like ragging on Bart for not turning up in green was very funny, I thought.
Point.
The ending, which sort of employed the classic Simpsons / weekly episodic show like reset to get everything back for next week. That one, I don't know, it really reminded me of the Armin Tamzarian OG Seymour Skinner episode when they send him off on the train. I don't know whether they kind of reused the same thing or whether that's just sort of classic episodic sort of sitcom shows. But yeah, that really, really reminded me of that.
Boom! Kablamo!
There's a really good book called Planet Simpson by Chris Turner. I highly recommend it. And he says that Armin Tamzarian episode is like the tipping point where he reckons it gets shit. Very, very good book.
What season's that?
I don't know.
All right, so MVP. Mine won't be Rex Banner, but it sounds like it might be one of yours. And best supporting actor. We'll go backwards this time and start with you, Simon.
We're doing best supporting actor or MVP first?
Sorry, we'll do MVP. Go around with the MVPs and then we'll go around with our best supporting actors.
Yeah, MVP for me is Rex Banner. I think without him, the episode just doesn't work conceptually. The gags fall flat. I mean, that's obviously the case with anyone in any episode, but I thought he was almost such a straight man. You got straight men and gag men. He was such a straight man. He was almost a gag man. It was, he was so straight it was a gag. So I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, that's a great summary of who my MVP is as well. I love his style, love the quotes, as I mentioned. One we haven't mentioned is when he's just accusing Barney of having sourced some illegal liquor. and he's asking him questions like whether some blind tiger is jerking suds on the side. Barney's just looking at him, and then eventually just says yes. He also tells Comic Book Man to not crack wise with him, which also confuses Comic Book Guy. Hubby, yeah. I agree. The episode doesn't work very well without the character. The gag is also great because he's just not good at his job. That's been touched on already. But he dismisses the liquor clouds over Evergreen Terrace. Homer walks past him with bowling balls in a wheelbarrow. Dismisses the concept of the Beer Baron even existing. So I think that's all of that adds up to me to be like he's the real star of the show.
I agree. Banner is the star of the show, and obviously, wouldn't really work without him. However, I've gone slightly left field with my MVP, and I've gone with Chief Clancy Wiggum. I loved watching his washed-up arc throughout the episode. I don't believe it's the only episode where something similar happens with his credentials as a police officer, which obviously terrible. But yeah, just watching him washed up and somehow being in the Simpsons' backyard with the window open, poking his head in with his shirt all disheveled, hair is a mess. Can I arrest anyone in here? And then when he goes to actually hold Homer up for all of his Beer Baron money with his gun, and then Homer says, "You don't even have a trigger on that gun." And he goes, "Yeah, I don't have a trigger, and I had to sell half the handle to feed my family." And then just the immediate acceptance of the townspeople of Springfield once Wiggum gets his redemption for solving the case of the Beer Baron. I love Wiggum. I love his love the way that they do his character right throughout the series. He's a classic. So he was my MVP.
Yeah, he was my Wiggy was my MVP. Could have gone. I thought Home was really good. He always is really good, but I thought Home was fantastic. But yeah, Wiggy was my MVP. Simon, best supporting actor.
Yeah. Just before I do, just to touch on the Wiggum, one pretty funny gag I had written down, but I didn't want to say it for time, and I will now. Just to add to that, feeling sorry for Wiggum was Homer saying, "Poor Wiggum," and then Wiggum also saying that, and then for some reason, Marge at the end of the episode is like, "That was a really lovely thing you did for poor Wiggum." Just this ridiculous running gag that was funny already, but when Marge says it's even funnier. And
sorry, a bit that going back to Mitchell liking physical comedy. The physical comedy bit that I laughed at was when Rex Banner physically booted Wiggum out of his chair.
That was good.
Sorry, Si.
No, and also just to repeat Marty's gag there, selling half a handle to feed his family. Like as a comedy writer, that is an outrageous line. It's just an outrageous line, isn't it? And that's right. I've got to say something now, don't I? Best supporting actor, old clerk guy for me. Old clerk guy. I hope I've stolen a few best supporting actor there. Wiggum's line, "Get out of here, old clerk guy," is a Hall of Fame line. And his accent, which I won't even attempt to try, is genius.
Mitch.
You've absolutely stolen my thunder there, Simon. Devastated. Honourable mentions to Chief Clancy Wiggum and, of course, Kent O'Brockman as well. I think he plays a starring role in the first sort of third of the episode. Fat Tony as well, actually. I'm a huge Fat Tony fan. Anytime he makes an appearance, and it just says anything in that voice. But yeah, old clerk guy was my best supporting actor, and I mean that I totally agree. When you can hear Wiggum go, "Get out of here, old clerk guy." I mean that's his name, old clerk guy. Just before I touched earlier on one appearance characters, and I mean I think perhaps we can finish off the best supporting actor and then come back to this, because I thought there was a couple of interesting suggestions that I had, which I might put to you.
That's a podcast. That's an episode.
Yeah.
That's a full episode.
Marty, what about your best supporting actor?
Yeah, this was hard, eh? obviously I didn't go with Banner for my MVP. Thought about him as my supporting actor, but he's not really a supporting role, and no one likes a narc. So I was tossing up for ages between the group of disgruntled ladies as my best supporting cast. Um, but decided to go with Mo. I thought Mo played a good role in this episode. He had a couple of really good gags that the boys have said earlier on. But just that whole lever thing, and I'm sure I've seen that gag somewhere else. But yeah, I went with Mo. I love Mo.
The way that Mo says ambience. My customers ain't going to stick around for the ambience.
All right, who's the designated drivers? Beat it.
Ain't got time for you cheapies.
I mentioned it earlier. I giggled at Marge a bit in this episode, so she was my best supporting actor. And so I think maybe we'll just give the fans a little bit of a taste, Mitch. But I do agree it would be a really good episode, a Simpsons one-off characters. But do you just throw a few at us, and we might be able to weigh in on a couple.
A couple were mentioned earlier. Hank Scorpio, Lyle Lanley. I think Frank Grimes is another one who's a very strong contender for greatest ever one-off. Well, he might have had, it was his son, wasn't it, who came back? So maybe you count the Grimes family as repeat offenders. My personal favorite is Don Brodka, who is the surly, gravel-voiced security guard at the Try and Save, who leaves voice messages as though he's talking to someone and says capiche. So there's a few there. I mean, there's a couple of others that I know you'll be a big fan of. Sam, including
Jay Sherman,
who makes one episode. Yeah, Jay Sherman.
Yep.
He's a real person, isn't he? So I would count that more in the sort of celebrity guest cameo rather than made up character appearance. But there are a couple of real excellent early season episodes. Some of which I actually had forgotten until I rewatched the back catalogue a few years ago, including Carl, his personal assistant.
and
Mr. Bergstrom as well, Lisa's sort of mentor at school. So yeah, there's certainly scope there for a whole episode on just the list, and then perhaps some sort of ranking system.
It's an episode, no doubt about it. Mitch, you've stumbled upon a brilliant idea there.
I could definitely talk
I
about
wrote down a few of those myself. I've chucked in Herb because I know he sort of semi-features in a second episode as well. But one of the other, I started thinking of single episode characters, but maybe it might be an opportunity for us to look at some of the worst one episode characters as well.
Oh, nice.
One of the ones I actually wrote down was the original Skinner. Well, not Armin Tamzarian, but yeah, that from that episode, as well as obviously like Poochie. He's a widely panned single episode character, but I think he also was within the actual Itchy and Scratchy episodes that he appeared on.
very meta of you there, Marty.
Yeah. Also, is his name Ralph or Ralphie?
Roy?
What was that?
Oh,
I thought it was Roy. You're talking about the guy who just moves in?
Yeah, Roy. Yeah. He sucked. And maybe a controversial couple. Wasn't like I loved the episode, but Lurleen Lumpkin's she's a bit of a drag. And also could have been a great character, but was never a fan of Mama Simpson or Mona Simpson.
Agree.
Might be a controversial call.
Look, I could talk for 5 minutes about the Southern Cracker executive.
Oh, yes.
But I think we can wrap it up there. And thank you guys, particularly you, Mitchell. Great insight. I feel a little bit, I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness with you three talking Simpsons. I feel a little bit, especially since I mugged off Rex Banner. Yes.
You say that, You say that, but I will just have to fact check myself because I did just have to look up Jay Sherman, and he's not a real person, obviously voiced by John Lovitz, but he was like a crossover character, or there was some sort of crossover thing.
Matt Groening refused to have his name on the episode because he was so disgusted that Fox made them do the crossover episode.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, when you say the presence of greatness, I'd just say the presence of wasted youth and much of adulthood.
Yeah. With that said, take those badges out of your mouth. You're damn podcasters.